Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we're jumping into beer from a brewer. We've had one beer prior, and it's actually the same beer, but a variation on the one that we tried prior. This is Jessup Farm Barrelhouse's 5-year anniversary beer, Barleywine. This specific version is bourbon barrel aged. The last one we did was tequila barrel. And interestingly enough, even though it's different barrels on the same named beer, the ABVs are actually different. It was like 10.8, 10.9 on the tequila barrel. This version is 12.2%, so slightly higher ABV. Jessup Farm Barrelhouse is based in Fort Collins, Colorado. This was their 5-year anniversary birthday gift to themselves. So quite awesome. In terms of label art, it's got that fox on the label. I'm guessing that's kind of their logo there, but relatively plain. But we got us a nice big bottle here, once again, from Jessup Farm. And we're going to get this poured right in our stout glass. Works very, very well for barley wine. This is pouring a classic caramelly color right in the glass. It's very active in terms of carbonation, but it doesn't seem to be having a problem forming a head here. I'm going to back that off, let that do its thing. We got plenty more in that bottle to go. So visually, yeah, that true caramel color. That is the classic color of a barley wine. They can run anywhere in the color spectrum from super light to absolutely pitch black and everywhere in between. But this is rather the norm, that true deep caramel color. In terms of carbonation, yeah, it's quite active. I can see a lot of cling on the sides of the glass and a ton of effervescence just rushing up. It's a little bit of a mix, mostly champagne, but some kind of smaller, medium size, slightly larger carbonation coming up, but it's got enough of that fast, super fine, tiny carbonation to form a nice head here. I can tell you, as I've been sitting here looking at this beer, the aroma did immediately jump out of the glass. It smells very strongly of bourbon. So we're going to get right up over this to see what else we pick out. Yeah, the bourbon's very clear. But it also does have very much a classic underlying barley wine aroma to it. There is a ton of toffee and caramel notes coming off of this, and indeed a ton of kind of baked cobbler. I'm getting really strong hints of plum and fig on this one. Really quite nice. A little bit of a grape quality to it as well. It's a little vinous. It's quite nice. Yeah, that's classic. Big, bold, pungent aromas. So barley wines all over the board. You never really know what you're going to get until you jump in, and that's part of the fun of them. So we're probably going to make a mess in our beard, but let's jump right in. Sip number one. Oh, yeah. Oh, nice. Oh, yeah. That's a big beer. Very big. Tons of layering of flavors. They're kind of moving in and out. They kind of start popping in one at a time, and then they start moving in and out of each other. And it feels very, very well balanced in this flavor spectrum. Before we get too deep into that, let's talk body and mouthfeel. This is a 12.2% ABV on a barrel-aged barley wine. This beer has heft to it. This is a strong, medium, heavy, bordering on heavy. It actually feels like it has more weight presence to it than I would expect for a 12.2. Not that that's a low ABV, but it's got real presence. It has real heft to it. It is a weighty beer. In terms of mouthfeel and resistance, yeah, there's a lot of viscosity to this one as well. There is a boatload of resistance. This is one that does get quite creamy when you agitate around the palate. You can really feel the thickness, the viscosity there, and it does a really nice job of coating the palate. So let's jump into the flavor profile. The first thing that I got immediately was kind of a 1-2 tandem bourbon with a nice little kick of bitters. And I gotta say, you don't often get that in barley wines, but I've had quite a few now where they are more bitter forward than your average. And I tell you, it's just another layer, another dimension to add to the already brilliant drinking experience of enjoying a barley wine. Getting that extra kick really does just add this other feather in the cap of what's already a really huge complex beer style and my personal favorite. But I absolutely love it. So the bourbon comes on very strong, and as does the bitter kick. And it's this nice earthy bitters. It doesn't have citrus or floral or any kind of weird off-putting flavors that you can sometimes get, like, say, out of big IPAs. It's just got, it's almost like you took a classic Fuggle British bittering hop that's got a nice earthy profile, but it's got a good heavy hand of it in there to kick the bittering up. It's quite nice. There is a big burst of caramel and toffee. Huge ribbons of that come immediately behind. And it really does start that interplay there and start popping in the fruits. The fig on this one is huge, and the plum on this is also huge. There's also a little bit of like this almost candied apricot kind of vibe I'm getting out of this. Almost, again, we come back to that cobbler. It's got a big, rich malt bill underneath it. So aside from these caramel and toffee notes, you do still get this really nice grainy sense, this kind of bready, doughy sense. It's almost like a sticky toffee pudding with various fruit. It's really, really nice. There's also very much a strong caramelized sugar vibe that I'm getting off of this. It does kind of put you in mind of like creme brulee sugar that would be on the top of that. And it's very common in a barley wine, and it's absolutely present here. And that is a flavor that I really love, with one that has strong caramel and toffee notes coming out of it as well, because it really does present this big, bold, dessert-like beer right on the platter for you to enjoy, and it's huge. And that really is what this is. This is not a slow, short kind of drinking session. This is a long haul, slow sips, really savor, really get to think and pick apart the beer. But I gotta say, on my first sip, absolutely incredible. Extremely well balanced, tons of layering, tons of complexity. I'm gonna jump back in for a second sip, let everything re-intensify, pick it apart, see if I missed anything, then we'll come back and talk about this finish. But absolutely top tier barley wine right here. It's so bold, and it has this kind of pop at the beginning, dials back, then it starts to re-intensify again and kind of blooms its intensity. Just these flavors rolling in and out of each other. There's a little bit of a booziness up front. After about the 10-second mark, it gets out of the way, and then you're just tasting very distinctly bourbon qualities with all the underlying barley wine characteristics. On the bourbon side of things, I'm getting a lot of kind of burnt barrel vibe off of this one. I'm also getting kind of hints of molasses. I'm getting a little bit of vanilla, not as strong as you get on some bourbons. I don't know what actually they might have told us. Old Elk bourbon barrels. So Old Elk bourbon barrels. I don't drink a lot of bourbon. I love it, but it gives me heartburn, so I don't drink it. Oak Elk I've never had. I'm guessing maybe that's a little more charry from the barrel dominant and just mild kind of vanilla notes, but it's very, very nice. This is indeed a big beer. On second sip, I'm not really picking out anything that I missed before. It just re-intensifies. And like I said, this does have a thick, viscous mouthfeel. It does a great job of coating the palate, so the flavors really do linger. And really the big takeaway I'm getting on second sip is, aside from picking out some additional subtleties the bourbon barrel is adding, just how impressed again I am with that nice kick of bitters. You don't often get that in a barley wine. It's here, and it just adds another dimension to it. So let's talk about the finish. The finish on this one is quite long. It is a big, bold, pungent beer style in a big, bold bourbon barrel that they chose to age this in, and it really does linger on the palate. A lot of that comes from the intensity in the barrel aging. A lot of it comes from the inherent thickness of the beer that really just coats these flavors all around the palate. On the end of it, I'm getting lingering bourbon barrel. I'm also getting lingering bitters and still lingering bits of toffee and caramel. That's kind of what I'm left with. And it's very much more dominant with the earthy bitters and the bourbon side than the malt bill side with those toffee and caramel notes, but they're all still there. I would say before it kind of dissipates to nothing on the end of the finish, it's easily 2 to 3 minutes on each sip that these flavors are still really quite present and noticeable on the palate. So you do get a lot of mileage and enjoyment out of each sip, and that over time really does help you to kind of pick apart and enjoy the nuances of the beer. I gotta say, this is tremendous. The second version of this Jessup Farm Barrelhouse 5-year anniversary barley wine. I love it. Very, very, very good beer here. I'm going to take my time, sip on this one, count my scores. When we come back, we'll get this beer ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this beer, we're going to get it ranked. This was Jessup Farm Barrelhouse's 5-year anniversary beer. This was a bourbon barrel-aged version. It is a barley wine. This one an even higher ABV than the last tequila barrel-aged version we reviewed. This one 12.2%. Jessup Farm Barrelhouse is based in Fort Collins, Colorado. So before we get into this, I got to say, I really enjoyed the tequila barrel-aged version as well. Tequila barrel, I've never seen on a barley wine. It's not a barrel you get on a lot of beers, but I've certainly never seen it on a barley wine. That one was really, really good. Tequila was an interesting barrel choice. It added a completely different set of aromas and flavors in the beer drinking experience, and it's not a combination I ever would have thought that I'd seen, but it definitely did work together. It was a very good beer. But considering this, not that we're making a direct comparison here, bourbon barrel is used for a lot of different beer styles and barley wines quite often, and for a very good reason. It's got a lot of qualities and characteristics, both aroma and flavor-wise, that really pair well with the characteristics underpinning a barley wine. So, this is another one of those illustrious few that I've reviewed to date that did get a perfect score in all categories. Aroma, taste, body, mouthfeel, finish, head and retention, appearance, balance, feeling, and intangible. That's my subjective thoughts category. Example of the style, which does give, of course, a total score of 100. Guys, this beer had it all. Just beautiful balance, tons of layers of complexity, even a really nice kick of bitters. Earthy, nothing funky, almost like a heavy hand of Fuggle hops. Just really, really enjoyed this. And a lot of char coming out of the underlying barrel. The classic toffee caramel, fig, plum, other candied fruit. I mean, this just had it all in spades, and it was just exceptionally well done. Now, if we go back to a comparison again, the tequila barrel-aged version also got a very, very high score. But bourbon, for my money, does definitely just work a little bit better with the underlying characteristics of a barley wine, and it just adds more layers of depth to it. They just pair so well together. That's why you see them with relative frequency, and this is a great example of exactly why. Guys, if you're a fan of barley wines, big barrel-aged beers, definitely worth keeping your eyes out. I don't know how readily you would be able to still get this 5-year anniversary beer, but if this is what Jessup Farm Barrelhouse is about, we've had 2 of their big barrel-aged barley wines now. Absolutely a brewer worth checking out, trying some of their other stuff. This one was absolutely top tier. Folks, that's today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just turn on your notifications, hit that bell icon. It's right next to the subscribe button. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.